Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to reading vlog number 2 for the Infernal Devices. I am currently reading book 2, aka The Clockwork Prince. For some reason, these titles all just blur in my mind and I cannot keep it straight which one is the first book, the second book, third, etc. So we're reading book number 2, Clockwork Prince, and I'm very excited to give a little reading update on where I currently am. I'm 25% in, and I've been taking notes, so let me pull them up really quick. Basically, we pick up immediately where like book 1 leaves off, and we kind of find out a little bit more about what's going on with Will, because at the end of book 1, it ended with Will seeking out Magnus's Bane's help for something. There's a curse that Will is needing Magnus to help break. Like, there's a curse on Will. What this curse is, I don't know yet, or we don't know yet. There hasn't been much. Like, it's very mysterious what this curse is, but Will is very eagerly and urgently wanting this curse to be broken. Like, something has snapped in his mind and he's like, this has got to be fixed. So we figure, like, we're observing more of that. I honestly love that Magnus is way more involved in the story, it seems like, or I'm hoping at least, because he's so fun to read about right now. Like, I love his character, so really happy that that is continuing and we're going to explore that, it seems like. And then we also get to observe like a clave meeting. Clave, is that how you say it? Anyways, we get to observe a meeting of all the shadow hunters in this London area, and it's very interesting being like a little fly on the wall and seeing how they like all observe each other and like participate in the discussion. Basically, the Lightwoods suck. They seem to have a lot of attitude, so like that's not a shocker, but it's just very interesting seeing all the dynamics at play. And at the end of book 1, Will and Tessa were on rocky terms. Will said something pretty harsh to Tessa, and Tessa was like very hurt by it, so they're on rocky terms right now. Tessa's trying to give him the cold shoulder of like, I'm not letting your words affect me anymore, I'm over it. And so therefore Will is now starting to grovel a little bit, like leaving her a letter with like what book to read next. They very much bond over like their knowledge of books or poetry, so he's trying to like make up to it, I guess, right now in his own way. So that's an interesting dynamic at play. Tessa's trying so hard to not let Will impact her, but it's very obvious Tessa has such strong feelings for Will. So I'm really curious on this love triangle on what's gonna happen. If like Jem is just gonna win by default, or like Will actually win out, who knows? So very curious to see how that plays out. And so basically at the clave meeting, it is basically a discussion to figure out how to stop the bad guy here. Mortman, I think is his name. I literally cannot pronounce his name, I don't think. Like, I can't. So we're trying to find the main bad guy and where his like little villains are hiding out, like his little associates and stuff like that. So that is what that meeting is, to discuss like their plan of attack, of like strategizing how they're going to handle this moving forward. And the Lightwoods decide to run their little mouth and try to act like the current team. Everyone at the Institute in London right now, like basically everyone there trying to solve this, is doing a poor job because the Lightwoods want the London Institute. And so it is very much like tensions are at a high, and they give the London Institute an ultimatum that they need to figure out in 2 weeks where the main bad guy is, or else they have to forfeit living there and like running the place, and the Lightwoods would take over. So we are very much on a crunched timeline trying to find the bad guy, but so far really enjoying it. It quite literally, like I said, picks up right where book 1 left off. And I'm just so curious to see if this one will maybe have more of a punch storyline wise, because I did feel like book 1 was just setting up for books 2 and 3. So I'm curious to see how it will pay off in this book and in the third book. So far it's pretty good, 25%. It's like I don't have much to share, but I just wanted to lay the ground of like what it seems like it's going to happen. We're gonna be investigating, trying to find out more about our bad guy, probably learn about his past a little bit, and like figure out where he's currently hiding. And then I really think something's gonna happen in the love triangle. I don't know why, but I feel like dynamics are shifting. I can already tell. Jessamine, she's kind of being weird. I don't know. Something I think is afoot there. But yeah, tensions are high basically because they're on a tight deadline to try and figure out anything, and right now they don't have much to go on. So we'll see what happens. September 1st and it is such a fall day. I got a sweater on, I have a fall candle burning, and I have a fun update for us on a clockwork print. I've read about 20-ish% more, so I'm around 41%. I've taken notes because you guys, so much has gone on. So basically, Will, Jim, and Tessa concoct a little plan on investigating our main bad guy. They want to know how he's gotten to where he is. So they start investigating and they realize there might be some archives in a smaller town, little institute, that they need to go visit and review these documents. And so they decide to make the trek. They get on a train and they visit this small town with this institute. And the guy that runs this one is ancient. This shadow hunter, he's like super old. And so what's interesting is that when they arrive there, this guy, I'm blanking on his name, he has such a weird name, but he recognizes Tessa and is startled, but like we don't get more than that. So it's very unsettling because it's like, wait, what's going on here? How does this man know Tessa? So it's very odd, that situation. So they travel to this institute, they gather up some documents, they gather up the research, and they figure out a few things. They're starting to connect the dots on who our bad guy is. It takes them to his, basically, childhood house. And as they approach this house, Will freaks the F out because he sees his little sister that he hasn't seen in years because, again, this is like the mystery of Will. I think it ties back to his curse because he basically, we find out, fled his family at a young age, like around 12. And once he joined the institute and became a shadow hunter, he lost basically all the rights to see his family, be with his family, speak to his family, that kind of thing, because his family are ex-shadow hunters. And so there can be no association. So Will basically excommunicated himself from his family. And so they stroll up to this house and he is shocked that he sees his little sister here. He's like, what's going on? And then obviously they're starting to connect the dots that somehow Will's family is tied to our evil bad guy. He is like 3 steps ahead of them every time. And of course there's these like mutations of the animatronics there. They get into a little fight and then they skedaddle. They get out of there and they head back to London. Then we finally learn once Will gets back to London, because after they get off the train, Will like books it and we're like, where the hell is he going? And that's because he's going to see Magnus Bane. And that's where he finally reveals that he has a curse placed on him at the age of 12 because he got into some mysterious box that unleashed a demon and cursed him. And so that is why he fled his family, because the demon killed his oldest sister because of said curse. And Will freaked out and realized, oh my gosh, he has to like leave his family because the curse was like anyone who actually cares about you will die, basically. So, and that's why we start finding out is why he's always so rude to everyone, because he thinks if anyone cares for him, they will die. So he's just so cruel with his words to everyone. So these dots are connecting and now you just start to feel really bad for Will. You're like, oh my gosh, this poor kid, this is so sad. I just feel for Will and what he's going through. And now we know why he wants the curse broken, because he's starting to have feelings for Tessa. Like, we obviously knew that was correct. But he wants the curse gone. He's like, I need it gone. We need to figure out how. Then we find out that basically Will is kind of spiraling because Magnus isn't sure how to exactly help Will. Like, yes, they can try and summon the demon that they need to like try and break the curse, but Will doesn't have much information. So it's just leading Will to spiral and thinking this curse may never get broken. So he's been gone for like days now at the institute, and Magnus Bane actually writes a letter to Tessa saying you need to go find your guy. Like, he's in danger. He's gonna hurt himself. He's not in a good state. Go find him. So Jim and Tessa set out to go find him, and of course they find him in a like basically a drug lair. Like, he is high on these demon drugs, and it's really sad. And they get to this drug lair, Jem is like so distraught or just like shocked that Will would even subject himself to these types of drugs, because Will fully knows that Jem has to have these drugs in order to survive, but Will's just doing it carelessly. And so it's starting to create a rift, and Tessa's like caught in the middle. So this little love triangle dynamic's real interesting. They rescue Will from this drug house, take him back to the institute. Jem is like wired up. He's so pissed. He's so livid. Emotions are high, and Tessa goes to Jem's room, and they have such a spicy, almost happen scene. Like, it is tension's high, it's steamy, it's like, oh my god. So now it makes me really want to root for Jem because it was just such a nice connection, and I was just like, oh my gosh. So they almost basically did the thing, but they got interrupted, and then Jem was like, oh my gosh, what are we doing, you have to leave. And they just basically had a hot moment, and so I love that for them. Like, I love it. I thought the tension to the buildup of this moment I thought was perfect, because all throughout this story so far we have seen Tessa and Jem kind of get closer and closer and closer in subtle ways, and then this was just like a, oh shit, it's happening kind of moment. At the end of this section, like where I finished off, Jess is acting kind of weird. She's kind of not been a big point thus far. She's kind of just been in the background, but as Tessa was like leaving Jem's room and was like flustered and like, oh my gosh, what just happened? She looks in the hallway and she sees Jess dressed in like boys' clothes and sneaking out. So it's very suspicious. I think something's going on there, like something nefarious. I don't know. Jess just is giving me not good vibes. So I think something's happening there. And then for Will's curse, a huge part of me is afraid that the curse is like not actually real, and that he's basically wasted all of this time and been cruel to people for no reason. Like, I'm really afraid that's what's gonna happen. I'm hoping the curse is real just for the sake of Will, because if it is not real, I'm just gonna feel even more devastated for him. And then Tessa and Jem, oh my god, hot steaminess, goodness, loved, ate it up. Their chemistry, dynamics, so good. They definitely give off like a friends to lovers kind of vibe. Like, started out as friends, now they're kind of lovers, whereas Will kind of gave off like a rival, enemy, immediate tension and electricity to like, I guess now a friend, because Will's definitely not in like the running right now, or at least Jem is taken ahead. So that's like the 41% mark of our book right now. I'm eating it up. I definitely feel like we're playing more into the love triangle aspect in this book compared to book one, and so I'm really enjoying it. I'm curious though, plot wise, and like finding the bad guy, the battles, that kind of thing, what's going to happen, and if there's going to be any more like maybe political dynamics. So far, I'm really enjoying it much more than book one right now in this. So that's my little reading update, and I'm just happy that it's fall. I'm happy it's fall. It's my favorite season of the year. I got my sweater on. I have a candle burning. I'm putting out some fall decor. Auburn football was on yesterday, and Auburn won their game. Overall, just a good old day. You guys, I'm currently at 60% in, and I had to give an update because you know how in my last update I said I don't know if Will is like down for the count, if he's really in this love triangle mix. Oh my gosh, he is in this mix. So come to find out, we figure out why Jess has been sneaking around and dressing like a boy and just being a little bit odd. We've uncovered an invitation, I said that kind of weird, but we uncover that she's been in correspondence with Nate, aka Tessa's brother, who's evil, and everyone's so shocked, and she's been invited to this masquerade ball. So like, love that. We love a masquerade ball, but they decide to use Tessa's powers to transform as Jess and go to the party instead and meet up with Nate and try and collect more intel and information. And obviously it's her and Will that decide to go. And at this party, they find out that somehow Jess and Nate got married. It's very skeptical on like if it was a legitimate marriage or not, but Tessa is appalled and she's trying to keep her cool and not blow her cover. So she's freaking out, realizing that Jess has been in cahoots with Nate and like basically leaking information to them. So that's how the evil guys have been like 2 steps ahead of them the entire time, because they basically had a rat inside the Institute, aka Jess. So that was like disappointing to read. Tessa's like kind of freaking out. She just like needs an escape. So Will sends a note to make it seem like Nate is needed. So he leaves and Tessa drinks some punch that I guess was spiked with some demon powder, like demon drugs in it. And Will also, I guess, had a sip of the punch. And basically they just have this steamy makeout session. Like Tessa accidentally transforms back to herself, and then it's just it just is so steamy on this balcony, and like, oh my gosh. So Will's in the running. I don't know who to be cheering for because I normally don't love triangles. Like, they actually drive me insane, but I'm eating it up. Like, I am just like gagged. It was such a good scene. So I truly do not know who to be rooting for right now. And I'm also just like, Tessa, you were making out with Jim last night and now you're making out with Will this night. Okay, girl. So anyway, so that's happened. And of course, as they were in a steamy makeout, who interrupts them? Magnus Bane. I love him. We have gotten so much more of him in this book, and I'm so happy because he's such a fun character to read about. His interactions with the Shadowhunters is so fun. And so he ends up breaking up their little makeout session, reminds them that, hey, you're actually like in the evil layer right now, like filled with bad people. Like, we should probably get y'all back home to the Institute. But Will comes across this demon who we think is maybe the demon who put the curse on him and is like chasing after him. And then Magnus Bane helps get Tessa back home and tries to be like, don't worry about him, he'll figure it out, whatever, trying to like make her leave. And so they get back to the Institute, and that's just where I've left off. But I had to give an update because, oh my gosh, that makeout scene was so steamy and good, and just like, wow. I truly thought Will was like out of the running, but I shouldn't have assumed that. My God. Oh, it was so good, guys. So good. It is Monday and I have today off, and I'm beyond excited to have today off, and it's also fall. I'm so excited for the fall weather. How many times can I say excited? I'm just in a good mood. I slept in this morning. I'm feeling good. I'm drinking my coffee, and I'm coming in with a reading update for you guys. So I'm currently at the 83% mark in the book, and a lot has happened. Some juicy things, some plot things happening. So basically, Will and Tessa get back from the masquerade party, and they confront Jess about what the hell's been going on, and they basically make her use like the mortal instrument sword thing, like the one that they talk about in the City of Bones books. They use it on Jess to tell the truth of like what's been going on and to get the accurate information from her, which is interesting because the sword makes her tell the truth, so it's what she believes to be true, not necessarily if it's actually true. Some of the things they're saying, like Jess is saying when they're questioning her, they're now skeptical of like, well, is this actually true, or did Nate tell her these things in case the sword would be used on her? So like lots of mind games going on right now, so that's a very interesting dynamic. And then little Jim confesses his love for Tessa, and they have a nice little steamy makeout session. So I'm just like very confused for our Tessa girl on like, who does she truly love the most? I get we like both boys, they're both cute, they're both different, but that doesn't mean we can just be kissing all of them like every day basically. So yeah, talk about a mess. It's getting messy. I'm really happy for Jim though, because he genuinely does seem like he's so in love with Tessa. So I'm like, Jim is just so consistent and so nice. So man, I think I'm partially favoring Jim right now, even though there are moments where I really do feel for Will and his whole situation. So once they gather all this information from Jess, they throw her to Silent City. Homegirl is in locked up prison now, but they have her write a letter to Nate convincing them to meet up. And so basically Tessa has to disguise herself as Jess and meet up with Nate to get more information from him and try to like figure out where our main villain is hiding out, because that's still like the main thing that they're trying to solve here is where the hell is he? So they devise this plan to ambush Nate basically and to try and capture him and get information out of him. However, things just like escalate, and there's basically a little battle that happens between Nate and our Shadowhunters, and Shadowhunters as in like Charlotte, Henry, Will, Jim, Tessa, because Nate realizes that it's Tessa disguising herself as Jess. And so they confront her, and then like a little mini battle happens. Basically Nate dies, but as Nate is dying, he's like apologizing to Tessie. That's what he calls her, and is just saying like, I've done horrible things, whatever, you don't know fully what I've done. And it's left Tessa like reeling because not only did she just lost her brother, she may hate him, but she also still partially loves him because they're family. But then also, like, what the heck does he mean? And then as he is dying, he says that Tessa needs to always wear this little clockwork angel necklace that she has been wearing this entire time, which I don't think I've mentioned fully, but it seems to activate whenever Tessa is in distress. It's very odd, and I'm wondering if, like, we're going to learn any more in this book or if we're going to learn about it in book 3. I'm kind of thinking we'll hear more about it in book 3 because all we know is that Tessa needs to be wearing it at all times. Like, Nate is so insistent of it, and then he basically dies. And then Will gets badly injured, and like then Tessa realizes she's badly injured. Like, her adrenaline's finally chilling out, and so they both have to go back to like their little medical hospital thing in the institute. So Will finally recovers, or recovers enough that he runs to Magnus Bane because Magnus has summoned the demon that Will has insisted on chatting with to help break the curse. And we come to find out that the demon never actually put a curse on Will. It's all been lies this entire time. The demon did kill his sister, but that's because he stung her like with his little tail thing. So it wasn't actually the curse that killed her, and he has thought that in this entire time it was because of the curse, and that's why he left his family. That's why he's so rude to people. So that was like truly heartbreaking for Will, and like just reading that, it was like, ugh, Will has spent so much time making people hate him and saying all these rude remarks when he could have just been his normal self. So that was really hard to digest. And that's officially all that's happened in this part. So I only have like 25-ish% left, and I will definitely probably just recap at the end what happens in that last chunk. I honestly don't know what's going to happen because Nate, we had a battle with Nate, but he's already died. Like, I don't know how we're gonna end this. I do know she loves a good cliffhanger, Cassandra Clare. Like, she loves to leave us on cliffhanger, so I am really curious on how we're going to end this book and how we're going to set up for book 3. I think book 3 is going to be the main showdown between our main bad guy and the Shadow Hunters. I think that's confirmed. Like, there's no way we're going to get to that in this book. But I'm curious to see where this love triangle is going to go because it's just such a mess right now. And I really don't know how it's going to play out, who Tessa's going to pick. Oh gosh, I mean, Will just learned that he doesn't have this curse on him anymore, so maybe Will now has a fighting chance? I don't know. You guys, I so wish I was filming my reaction to reading the last 25% of this book because what is happening? What is happening? I think chapter 18 is when something huge happens between Jem and Tessa. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. They get engaged. Jem decides to propose to Tessa. Tessa says yes, and I'm just like shocked. Like shocked, but like at the same time shocked because their relationship has definitely developed a lot in this book, but at the same time, I feel like Tessa has stronger feelings for Will. But I don't know, I guess, if that's more lust feelings or if they're genuine, like, everything feelings, because I do know Jem has been more of a slow burn and, like, a friends to lovers type of path of romance. And so the fact that they're engaged, I'm just gagged. I'm shocked. Oh my God. And then how it was revealed, I was just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, Jem just announced it at dinner after they had, like, defeated Nate's brother and, like, done a bunch of running around and, like, schemed and everything. And then we find out, he just blurts it out at dinner and everyone's, like, so shocked. They're like, what the hell is going on? So that was one huge thing that happened. And then, like I briefly mentioned, they did do a lot of scheming in the last 25%. So they had just defeated Nate and then they had some nuggets to help scheme on how to go about, you know, going back to the Clave and giving an update on what's been going on and getting more support from more Shadow Hunters. And so they did some scheming, they did some blackmailing, and they got more support and they can keep the London Institute. So that happened, and then we did see Sophie, the maid in this book. She starts to develop feelings for one of the Lightwood brothers. His name is Gideon. I think they're really cute together. I love them, and I hope we get more of them in the next book because I think their dynamic is really interesting. And oh, I don't know if I really mentioned this, but we got to see the werewolf leader in this book. I'm blanking on his name right now. He played a small part, but he was such a fun part. Like, he was such an odd character, matched Magnus's Bane's level of energy, and they were like kind of together towards the end of the book as well. Such a fun pairing. I loved them. And then as for Will finds out, like I last updated, that his curse was not real, and so his immediate reaction is to run to Tessa and tell her how he's feeling, but he has to like wait to do that until they have a moment alone. And by the time they have a moment alone, Tessa has already been proposed to and said yes, and they've just finished scheming. And so they finally have this quiet time, and Will is like professing his love in the most earnest way, and it just like knife to the heart. Like, it's just like, oh my God. And Tessa's like freaking out, being like, oh my God, you need to stop, you need to stop. I'm so perplexed on how the love triangle is going, like what will happen in book 3, or if it's really just gonna be Jem and Tessa that are together, and then Will just like has to like sit on the sidelines and watch the love of his life be with his best friend. That kind of thing. Like, I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens. And then at the very, very end, you know, when they're at the dinner, Jem finally announced to everyone that they're engaged, and everyone's like shocked. And we also find out that Charlotte, the head leader of the London Institute, she's pregnant. So that's also a big deal. So lots of good news, lots of celebrating. And guess who decides to knock on the Institute's door and walk on in? None other than Will's youngest sister, which leaves Will gagged. He is so shocked. He's like, what the hell are you doing here? And then that's kind of how the book ends. And so it's very much left on like kind of a cliffhanger of like what's going to be the dynamic now moving forward in the Institute, because you have an engaged couple, you have the head leader who's pregnant, and then you also have now Will's younger sister in the picture, so who knows what's going to happen. And I definitely think book 3, like I had predicted, is going to be like the main showdown between the Shadowhunters versus the evil guy and this world. And so I'm very eager now to see what the hell, how are we gonna tie this up? Like, that's what I think I'm just so confused on, like, where the hell is book 3 going? Because I just did not picture an engagement. Like, that is so shocking to me. So I'm curious to see, like, in the next book, will an engagement happen, or will something traumatic happen? I know in like the first book, I had a feeling that someone was going to die. I still think that. I still think one of these characters in book 3 will die. Will almost died. I say that very loosely. He got very badly injured when they fought Nate, but he recovered and he's fine now. So I'm curious, like, if that was foreshadowing, or maybe someone else is going to perhaps perish in book 3. I don't know. I wish I was filming my reaction so y'all could have seen it, because like chapter 18, I think, is when the Jem and Tessa engagement goes down, and it's so sweet and it's so wholesome, and it's just, I was so shocked because I just did not expect that. So I definitely enjoyed this book more so than book 1. I think I'm gonna give this a 4-star rating. Like, it was a solid 4-star. Definitely leaned more into like the romance aspect of this story. I just wished a smidge more action, just like a smidge, and it would have been perfect. But I thoroughly enjoyed this, and now I can't wait to see what happens in book 3, like I keep saying. So if you read this book, please let me know what you thought of it when you read it. Were you as gagged as me when like all the romance stuff was happening? Or did you see it coming? Like, was it obvious that you knew this was gonna happen? So let me know it in the comments below. And I hope you enjoyed this reading vlog, and I'm literally about to dive into book 3. So I'll see you in my next video for this reading series. And yeah, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you can stay up to date on when I post videos, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye guys.